Chapter 9. Take action to at least double your paycheck. Here is the truth no politician, few economists, few teachers want to tell people, and that few people want to hear. Certain jobs are only worth a certain maximum number of dollars per hour, whether you've been there doing it for 1 year, 10 years, or 30 years. Longevity does not necessarily merit more money because the individual's length of time on the job does not necessarily increase the real value of getting that job done. As our economy is forced to acknowledge this uncomfortable reality in the years to come, there will be a great many bitter casualties. However, hidden inside this uncomfortable truth is the secret to increasing your income literally at will. In his book, Earl Nightingale's Greatest Discoveries, Earl noted that every field of human endeavor has its stars. All the rest in these fields are in a descending order of what we might call the service reward continuum. He went on to point out the reason some people earn more money than others is that they have made themselves more valuable. He observed that, for the most part, the size of a person's paycheck is determined by this question: how difficult is he or she to replace? As I was writing this, I was listening to a roundtable debate on a Sunday morning news program about employment and productivity and security in America, and a young employee had this question for management and for unions: how will you help me avoid losing my job in the future? Well, you see, that's the wrong question. The unions try hard to protect their turf by answering it, and as a result, they tell a big lie. Management tries hard to answer it, and as a result, they lie. Government even sticks its nose in and tries to answer it and lies. The only real truthful response is to refuse to answer it at all. What this young man needs to do is go find a full length mirror, sit down in a chair facing it, stare deeply into his own eyes, and ask himself, what am I going to do to avoid losing my job in the future? The key words are, what am I going to do? That is the question. And here are the extension questions. Number 1, what am I going to do to increase my value in the marketplace? 2, what am I going to do to demonstrably increase my value to my current employer, or clients, customers, or patients? 3, what am I going to do to increase my value to prospective future employers? 4, what am I going to do to make myself so valuable that I'm the least likely to be cut, the last to be cut? Unfortunately, the most common responses are, I don't have time, I can't afford to, my employer should, the government should, take evening classes and spend my own money? Hey, I already work hard all day. When I come home, I'm tired and I can't afford to take classes. Besides, if these classes are going to give me skills I'll use on the job, my darn employer ought to pay for them, and I ought to get to take the classes during regular work hours. If I have to go to classes on my time, I should get time and a half. Eric Hoffer wrote, there are many who find a good alibi far more attractive than achievement. I have sometimes been introduced as a speaker, as the professor of harsh reality. Well, here is the harsh reality every adult should come to grips with as quickly as possible. Every young person should be taught, 1 year, 3 years, and 5 years from now, the particular job or task you do will not have appreciably increased in value. You will either have stayed the same in value or increased in value through your own initiative. That's the only way. If you have not increased in value and your job has not inherently increased in value, at some point your employer can't or clientele won't pay more, regardless of inflation. It is at that point that your economic status shifts into reverse. Your income stagnates or declines. The gradual decline in your buying power as a consumer will prevent you from saving, investing, and creating financial security, or erode what you have already accumulated, and your vulnerability to layoff, termination, or replacement increases. This is true of the self employed, the business owner as well. If you're not increasing your value to your customers, if you are not making yourself indispensable to them all over again, every day, then you are declining in value to them. You are either increasing in value or declining in value. How many people do you think have this add value idea straight in their minds? Well, look around. 1 out of every 10 adult Americans is on food stamps. 95% of the people reaching retirement age lack the financial resources to take care of their basic needs without all sorts of direct and disguised welfare. In most big companies, there are masses of people doing the very same jobs, the very same way year after year, even decades after decade. Shocked when cheaper foreign labor or automation or some other replacement boots them out on the street. Small business owners suddenly find themselves vulnerable when a major mass retailer or chain or aggressive new competitor comes to town. How can these terrible things happen to good people in America? Every one of these people has one very distinctive thing in common. From one year to the next, they have not taken any initiative, not done anything, not invested any money or time in increasing their potential or their own personal value. You need to look very closely at all these folks and avoid following their example at any and all cost. And if you really would like to double your paycheck, simply take action to triple your value. One of three things will absolutely certainly happen. One, your present employer will respond with raises, bonuses, and advancement. Two, a new employer will find and grab you. Three, you'll discover some entrepreneurial opportunity and move on to writing your own paycheck. And if you already own a business and would like to double your paycheck, simply take action to triple your value to your customers. Your compensation will always catch up to your value. Chapter 10. Take action to promote yourself, your ideas, your business, products, and services. Today I had lunch with Coach Bill Foster, currently in charge of the entire Southwest Conference of college basketball after a long, incredibly distinguished coaching career. Bill gave the famous Jim Valvano his first coaching job. Bill has a phenomenal tenure at Duke and then at the University of South Carolina. Esquire magazine featured him as Dale Carnegie on the basketball court because of his reputation as a powerful motivator. He turned Northwestern's program around. In every case, everywhere Bill went, attendance soared, alumni support increased, and community involvement with the team improved dramatically. Bottom line, Bill Foster knows how to fill seats. And that's what we talked about at lunch. What he is now busily doing for the SWC's schools, most with sagging attendance. He is teaching and motivating coaches to become promoters, and he is relentlessly promoting. Last year, the tournament's big tip-off luncheon, for example, had only 300 in attendance. This year, 1,000, and Bill's goal for the next one, 1,500. A 500% increase in 2 seasons. Schools with game attendance down to 2,000 will, with a single season, climb to 4,500 with the Bills' determined influence. What Bill Foster knows about success that most people don't, or don't want to. Here's what Bill told me that everybody needs to hear and take to heart, whether they like it or not. Coaches, he told me, often don't understand that what they do off the basketball court all year round in their communities and with the national media promoting is as important as what they do on the court. Because if attendance sags, the university's easiest fix is to fire the coach and bring in a new coach with new excitement and new promises. Because if attendance sags, recruitment suffers. Because if attendance sags, player confidence and commitment suffers. In other words, a very, very important part of the coach's responsibility is promotion. In other words, the core of coaching, like the core of operating a restaurant, owning a pet shop, writing books, being a jeweler, whatever, is not of sole importance. It is not the key to success. The smart coach is an assertive, creative promoter. One of the signs on my wall says, "A terrible thing happens when you don't promote." Bill said, smiling. Nothing. I have watched Bill's career closely, both at the University of South Carolina, then at Northwestern, now at SWC, and I'll tell you something. If you didn't know where he was, you could figure it out just by collecting and looking at the promotional literature, the calendars, the newsletters, the mailings of each school. One would stand out above all others, and that's where you'd find Bill Foster. You see, in every field of endeavor, in any field of endeavor, the winners are promoters. Now, some people will want to argue about how unfair that is. I saw some clown from the ABA on a talk show the other day, blaming the legal profession's disfavor with the public on those few attorneys who do a lot of advertising. At Arizona State University, the academic in crowd just about ostracized the professor who turned Where There's a Will, There's an A into a giant nationwide bestseller, making himself famous and rich along the way. That's all crap. It's jealousy, ego speaking. Those unwilling to promote are always the biggest, most vocal critics of those successful through promotion. Pick any field and you'll find both. You'll find very vocal critics of promoters, and you'll find tremendously successful promoters. General Patton was viewed by many of his peers as a shameless, egotistical promoter. Madonna, throughout her career, has been sneered at as a no-talent self-promoter. Brandon Tarkentoff, Donald Trump. Richard Nixon brought himself back from utter, unparalleled disgrace to respected status as an astute elder statesman through an aggressive implemented thorough strategy of self-promotion. And let's add the adage. There have been many statues erected to honor those highly criticized, but very few statues erected to critics. You only get to choose from door number 1 or door number 2. You really have two choices. You can choose to stick your nose up at the promoters, criticize them and criticize promotion, view it as unseemingly, as beneath you, as crass, and stand around grumbling about it. Or you can get good at it and use it to create influence, prominence, prestige, credibility, celebrity, career, and financial success. It is your choice. The coaches Bill works with face these choices. Some of those who choose door number 1 will lose their current positions and move down to smaller schools. And there they may very well find happiness, peace of mind, a home, and that's okay. Many, though, will move down and be puzzled and embittered by it. They live forever in envy of others they judge to be less qualified, less capable coaches than they are. The world is full of such people. A few will pick door number 2. They'll get the message. They'll somehow get intellectually and emotionally okay with the way things really are. They'll dig in and learn and adapt and grow. They'll become great promoters, and those are the coaches whose names you and I will know. This guy could start an argument in an empty room. How can you succeed with a personality like that? Buddy Ryan, when defensive coordinator at the Chicago Bears, irked head coach Ditka, the owner, and countless others with his braggadocio self-promotion. Then he went to be head coach in Philadelphia, and in short order, so aggravated the owner and local media, he was fired. Then, as a defensive coordinator at the NFL's Houston Oilers, Buddy Ryan lost his cool and got into first an argument, then a fist fight with the offensive coordinator on the sidelines during a nationally televised game. His sin was shown over and over again during the game and on newscasts in Sports Illustrated and the newspapers, and every pundit said, now he'll never get another head coaching job. Many peers, sports writers, and others rejoiced in Buddy's demise. Finally, his big fat mouth has destroyed his career, as it should. Nuts. As soon as the season ended, the owner of the Phoenix Cardinals grabbed Buddy Ryan like a drowning man clutching a lifesaver, and Buddy grabbed the mic at the press conference and instantly insulted past coaches, players, the owner, and said, "Well, Phoenix, you've finally got a winner here," and 20,000 season tickets sold like hotcakes. Reading what Robert Ringer said about the leapfrog theory in his book Winning Through Intimidation literally changed my life. That's when I first got the message. Let me now try and summarize the message. Waiting around to be discovered, to be recognized, to be noticed, to be appointed, to be promoted guarantees one thing and one thing only: old age. Focusing on doing whatever it is that you do better than anybody else and trusting that that alone is enough, and arguing tireless that it should be enough, guarantees one thing and one thing only: a long life of labor in oblivion. If Jesus had hung around his hometown working as a carpenter, giving his talks at the local Kiwanis club meeting, writing books that never got published, waiting to be discovered, we might all be Zen Buddhists today. He was a pretty bold, bombastic promoter. Turned wet bread into fish, healed the blind, pitched a fit about the merchants hanging around the temple. Well, you know the story. I don't have to tell you about it. You know the story because Jesus was such a great promoter. Chapter 11. It's not enough to act on your ideas. The only reliable path to maximum success is maximum action. My speaking colleague Jim Rohn says that when you look closely at the highly successful individual in any field, you walk away saying to yourself, "It's no wonder he's doing so well. Look at everything he's doing." Well, there's a darn good test. If we followed you around for a week and painstakingly recorded how you spend your time, what you did every day to advance your career or business, would we wind up saying to ourselves, "It's no wonder he's doing so well. Look at everything he's doing"? The truth is that most people are intellectually lazy, surprisingly uncurious in their acquisition of information. And in their businesses, they lazily rely on only one, two, or three methods of attracting customers or clients. As a consultant, quite frankly, I do not walk away from most clients saying, "It's no wonder he's doing so well. Look at everything he's doing." Mostly I say to myself, "It's a miracle he's doing as well as he is. Look at how little he's doing." I once knew a chiropractor who built $3 million a year practices. Not one, three. Dr. S built and sold one, moved to another community, built and sold another one, and once a fluke, but three's a system. So the word spread, and a whole lot of doctors wanted to know how he did that. So many, so much so that thousands each paid $30,000 to come and hear him expound on his methods in seminars. But the essence of his success was really quite simple. Invariably, every doctor asked him the same question: "How can I get blank new patients this month? How can I get 30 new patients this month? How can I get 50 new patients this month?" The number varied, but the question was always the same. And so was Dr. S's answer: "I don't know one way to get 30 new patients, but I know 30 ways to get a new patient, and I use every single one of them." See, if you need new clients for your business, don't do one thing, do a dozen things. If you have a problem to solve, don't implement one possible solution, implement a dozen. One of the speakers I appear with frequently these days is Reverend Robert Schuller, and he's become famous for his story of how he faced the massive cost overruns in completing the Crystal Cathedral. Confronted with a need for $10 million, he made a list of 10 different ways he might raise that money. Then he went to work on all 10 simultaneously. Take action to diversify the way that money and success comes to you, the way that you solve problems, even the way that you acquire new information and grow as a person. Curiosity, incidentally, is a wonderful thing. Forget the old "curiosity kills the cat" thing. Curiosity is what uncovers opportunities and makes people rich. The average child of 5 to 10 asks hundreds of questions a day. The average adult asks only a handful. That is why kids have so much energy and enthusiasm for living. This is also why adults age prematurely and rapidly. Life force itself comes from curiosity and creativity. Always be creating and discovering with enthusiasm. When it becomes went there, did that, you have at least one foot in the grave. What kind of action yields the greatest results? Yes, there is one type or kind of action that produces maximum results in a minimum length of time, thanks in part to the principle of momentum. Again, it's from Jim Rohn, and I first heard about the incredibly powerful principle of a massive action. The key word here is massive. Not tiny action, not wimpy action, not tentative action, not toe in the water action, not ponderously slow action, massive action. In 1946, a man named Walter Russell had his philosophies published, largely because he was such an unusual, larger than life figure. Russell never went past elementary school, and his first job was a clerk in a dry goods store earning $2.50 a week. To the amazement of just about everybody who knew of his non background, Russell achieved considerable fame and success as an architect, sculptor, and artist. With the publication of his success philosophies, Russell became known as the man who tapped the secrets of the universe. Russell insisted that every man has consummate genius within, and taught that every successful man or genius has three particular qualities in common, and the most conspicuous of this is that all produce a prodigious amount of work. In his classic Lead the Field recordings, Earl Nightingale told with slight sarcasm of the man who arrives home every day and say to his family, "Boy, am I tired," because that's what he heard his father say every day when he arrived home from work, at a job under conditions that really warranted the expression of exhaustion. I am often impressed at how little work people are willing to do in order to get what they insist they want. Let me give you an example of the principle of massive action in action. A woman, Barbara L., cornered me at a seminar, introduced herself as the CEO of a specialized industrial company. In her words, a woman in a man's world, and told me of her frustrations and woes with finding financing. She was literally turning away lucrative manufacturing contracts because she couldn't finance the necessary raw materials, labor, and other costs while in production, and then waiting to be paid a month or so following delivery. Having once run a specialty manufacturing company with similar problems, I instantly had empathy and ideas for her. But first I asked some questions, and I was not surprised to discover that she had tried most local banks, suffered rejection, and pretty much given up. From my own experience, I knew Barbara had stopped at only scratching the surface of potential solutions. But she was no different than most. Most people confronted with a problem think of and try only a few solutions and give up quite easily. This, incidentally, is the blunt truth behind many of our popularized societal ills and failures. Most people who can't get jobs actually have given up on getting a job. People who can't get off welfare have truthfully given up getting off welfare. Here's why this is inarguably true. Because there are people just like them who have persevered and gotten jobs, who have persevered and gotten off welfare. If one can, everyone can. So, just as example, here was my prescription for Barbara. Number one, strengthen the proposal package and recontact every bank that said no. Then keep recontacting them and bringing them up to date every 30 days. Number two, reach out to friends, associates, contacts, vendors in search of recommendations of other lenders and or somebody who has a relationship of some kind with someone of authority in one of those banks. Number three, discuss different formats for the financing, revolving receivables credit line or asset-based long-term loan or 90-day notes. Ask the banks for different things. Number four, contact banks outside the local market. Draw a 300-mile circle around a plant and contact every bank in that circle. Number 5, consider a sale leaseback arrangement with a leasing company for all the equipment and furniture in the factory and offices. 6, contact the SBA. Through the SBA, you put in touch with SBA certified lenders and investigate the SBA's preferred lending services for women-owned businesses. Number 7, get free help through the SBA from the Service Corps or retired executives for beefing up the business plan proposal. Number 8, meet with key vendors and discuss creative extended terms that could equate to the same effect as a loan or credit line. Simultaneously, open up conversations with new alternative vendors who might use credit as a means of acquiring new business. Number 9, consider factoring some receivables. Meet with factoring companies and brokers. 10, offer customers a significant discount for paying 50% to 100% of the contracts in advance. Number 11, advertise for private lenders and angels. Number 12, form a new limited partnership or corporation with private investors, which will serve as a financing for profit business, lending against your other company's receivables. 13, franchise or pseudo-franchise exclusive sales territories and use the fees collected from that to establish your own financing fund. 14, alter the nature of your business, the mix of your business, so you can get cash with order business. 15, through blind confidential advertising, put the entire business up for sale and test the waters. 16, meet with key employees and discuss possibilities for assembling receivables, financing, or equity investment from employees. Now, here's the trick I shared with Barbara. Do all 16 of these things at the same time. Right now, fast. Back when I ran a company with its nose pushed up against the same wall, I did all 16 of these things. In our case, we succeeded with numbers 3, 5, 8, 10, and 14. Number 10 alone, incidentally, dramatically altered the company's cash flow situation, even though everybody told me that the clients in our industry would never prepay for the manufacturing orders. In 3 months, we converted over half the existent clients to prepaying for a 10% discount. But if we had tried 1, done everything we could before giving up on 1, then tried 2, done everything we could with 2, then tried 3, it's pretty obvious that time's going to win and we're going to lose. Of course, she might have responded, as most would, with, "Geez, that's a lot of work." And she might have said, "How am I supposed to get all that done?" And, "But I don't know how to do all those things." Or, "I'll be working until midnight every day to do all that," etc. But I'm delighted to report that Barbara found an SBA-certified lender bank, secured a long-term loan replacing all her other financing and providing expansion capital, and she found 3 private individuals happy to finance individual large receivables from new contracts as she needs them. And it's no wonder Barbara finally got her financing. Look at everything she did. Could you cultivate the most prized personal characteristic of any and all known to man? Let me give you one other example that leads us to yet another important success behavior. Recently, in Fort Wayne, Indiana, for me, disaster struck. The setup crew for the Success 94 seminar tour called me in my hotel room the afternoon before the event to tell me that none of my product was at the convention center. Everyone at my offices and then did everything they thought they could do to correct the problem, to get UPS delivered early the next day, to try and trace the location of the shipment. They did everything they thought they could do, but they still stopped short of doing everything they could do. As concerned and earnest as they were, they stopped short. Why? Because very, very few people understand the idea of refusing to accept anything less than success. After they gave up, I dug in. Through a series of phone calls and conversations, I finally got the guy standing on the right receiving dock in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I sold him, and I mean sold, on getting up early the next morning, getting to his warehouse, and going through the carloads of boxes left there during the night to find mine. and to call me by 7 a.m. that morning with the good news that he had done so. And a little after 7 a.m., he was on the phone, and he had the boxes loaded in his own personal pickup truck, and he brought them to the convention center, undoubtedly in violation of a handful of company regulations. And for you cynics, I didn't offer him money. He never asked for money. And when we finally tried to give him money that morning, he refused it. Now, I honestly believe that I did not do anything here that anybody else couldn't have done. This was not a matter of talent. I just refused to accept anything less than success. I stayed at it long enough and hard enough that I got a little earned luck. I found a guy like me. Two people who can and will carry the message to Garcia. If you don't know the story of the man who carried the message to Garcia, I've reprinted it here. It reveals the most prized characteristic on earth. A message to Garcia. In all this Cuban business, there is one man stands out on the horizon of my memory like Mars at perihelion. When war broke out between Spain and the United States, it was very necessary to communicate quickly with the leader of the insurgents. Garcia was somewhere in the mountain vastness of Cuba. No one knew where. The president must secure his cooperation, and quickly. What to do? Someone said to the president, "There is a fellow by the name of Rowan. Will find Garcia for you, if anybody can." Rowan was sent for and given a letter to be delivered to Garcia. How the fellow by the name of Rowan took the letter, sealed it up in an oilskin pouch, strapped it over his heart in 4 days, landed by night off the coast of Cuba from an open boat, disappeared on the other side of the island, having traversed the hostile country on foot, and delivered his letter to Garcia, are things I have no special desire now to tell in detail. The point that I wish to make is this. McKinley gave Rowan a letter to be delivered to Garcia. Rowan took the letter and did not ask, "Where is he at?" By the eternal, there is a man whose form should be cast in deathless bronze, and a statue placed in every college of the land. It is not book learning young men need, nor instruction about this and that, but a stiffening of the vertebrae, which will cause them to be loyal to a trust, to act promptly, concentrate their energies, do the thing, carry a message to Garcia. General Garcia is now dead, but there are other Garcias. No man who has endeavored to carry out an enterprise where many hands were needed, but has been well nigh appalled at times by the imbecility of the average man, the inability or unwillingness to concentrate on a thing and do it. Slipshod assistance, foolish inattention, dowdy indifference, and half-hearted work seem the rule, and no man succeeds, unless by hook or crook or threat, he forced or bribes other men to assist him, or mayhap God in his goodness performs a miracle, and sends him an angel of light for an assistant. You, reader, put this matter to a test. You are sitting now in your office, 6 clerks are within call. Summon anyone and make this request. Please look in the encyclopedia and make a brief memorandum for me concerning the life of Corregio. Will the clerk quietly say, "Yes, sir," or go to the task? Or your life he will not. He will look at you of a fishy eye and ask one or more of the following questions. Who was he? Which encyclopedia? Where is the encyclopedia? Was I hired for that? Don't you mean Bismarck? What's the matter with Charlie doing it? Is he dead? Is there any hurry? Shan't I bring you the book and let you look it up yourself? What do you want to know for? And I will lay you 10 to 1 that after you have answered the questions and explained how to find the information and why you want it, the clerk will go off and get one of the other clerks to help him try to find Garcia, and then come back and tell you there is no such man. Of course, I may lose my bet, but according to the law of average, I will not. Now, if you are wise, you will not bother to explain your assistant that Corregio is indexed under the C. Not in the case, but you will smile very sweetly and say, "Never mind," and go look it up yourself. And this incapacity for independent action, this moral stupidity, this infirmity of the will, this unwillingness to cheerfully catch hold and lift, These are the things that put sure socialism so far into the future. If men will not act for themselves, what will they do when the benefit of their effort is for all? A fistmate with knotted club seems necessary, and the dread of getting the bounce. Saturday night holds many a worker to his place. Advertise for a stenographer, and nine out of 10 who apply can neither spell nor punctuate, and do not think it necessarily to. Can such a one write a letter to Garcia? "You see that bookkeeper," said the foreman to me in a large factory. "Yes, what about him?" "Well, he's a fine accountant. But if I'd send him up town to an errand, he might accomplish the errand all right, and on the other hand, might stop at four saloons on the way, and when he got to Main Street, would forget what he has been sent for. Can such a man be entrusted to carry a message to Garcia?" We have recently been hearing much maudlin sympathy expressed for the downtrodden denizens of the sweatshop and the homeless wanderer searching for honest employment, and with it all often go many hard words for the men in power. Nothing is said about the employer who grows old before his time in a vain attempt to grow or to get frowsy, never do wells to do intelligent work, and his long, patient striving after help that does nothing but loaf when his back is turned. In every store and factory, there is a constant weeding out process going on. The employer is constantly sending away help that have shown their incapacity to further the interests of the business, and others are being taken on. No matter how good times are, this sorting continues. Only if times are hard and work is scarce, the sorting is done finer. But out and forever, out the incompetent and unworthy go. It is the survival of the fittest. Self interest promotes every employer to keep the best, those who can carry a message to Garcia. I know one man of really brilliant parts who has not the ability to manage a business of his own, and yet who is absolutely worthless to anyone else, because he carries with him constantly the insane suspicion that his employer is oppressing or intending to oppress him. He cannot give orders, and he will not receive them. Should a message be given to him to take to Garcia, his answer would probably be, "Take it yourself." Tonight this man walks the streets looking for work, the wind whistling through his threadbare coat. No one who knows him dare employ him, for he is a regular firebrand of discontent. He is impervious to reason, and the only thing that can impress him is the toe of a thick-soled No. 9 boot. Of course, I know that one so morally deformed is no less to be pitied than a physical cripple. But in our pitying, let us drop a tear too for the men who are striving to carry on a great enterprise, whose working hours are not limited by the whistle, and whose hair is fast turning white through the struggle to hold in line dowdy indifference, slipshod imbecility, and heartless ingratitude, which, but for their enterprise, would be both hungry and homeless. Have I put the matter too strongly? Possibly I have. But when all the world has done a slumming, I wish to speak a word of sympathy for the man who succeeds, the man who, against great odds, has directed the efforts of others, and having succeeded, finds there's nothing in it, nothing but bare board and clothes. I have carried a dinner pail and worked for a day's wages, and I have also been an employer of labor, and I know there is something to be said on both sides. There is no excellence per se in poverty. Rags are no recommendation, and all employers are not rapacious and high-handed, any more than all poor men are virtuous. My heart goes out to the man who does his work when the boss is away, as well as when he is at home, and the man who, when given a letter for Garcia, quietly takes the missive without asking any idiotic questions, and with no lurking intention of chuckling or chucking it into the nearest sewer, or of doing naught, unless but deliver it, never gets laid off, nor has to go on a strike for higher wages. Civilization is one long anxious search for just such individuals. Anything such a man asks shall be granted. He is wanted in every city, town, and village, in every office, shop, store, and factory. The world cries out for such. He is needed, and needed badly. The man who can carry a message to Garcia. Chapter 12. Take action to turn failure into success. I once saw a particularly ornery dog latch onto a mailman's leg. The mailman shook his leg, but the dog held on, growling menacingly. The mailman kicked the dog with his other leg. The dog held on. The mailman dragged the dog down the sidewalk. The dog held on. The mailman sprayed the dog with mace. He hit the dog on the head with his mail sack. He swung his leg, dog attached into a tree trunk. The dog held on. I thought to myself, there is the dog version of Dan Kennedy. In his best-selling book, Swim with the Sharks, Harvey Mackay tells of being turned down by all his local lending institutions. Then he drew a 3-inch circle on the map around his city and called on all the banks within that circle. They all turned him down too. He drew a bigger circle. Eventually, he got his loan. He says he'd still be drawing ever bigger circles if he hadn't connected. I believe him. If you look at most highly successful entrepreneurs, you won't find markedly superior talent, intelligence, education, or resources. Self-made millionaires are surprisingly ordinary, and often surprisingly unintelligent people. Conversely, a small percentage of Mensa members are self-made millionaires. So it ain't intelligence. Instead, it seems to have much to do with a profound sort of stubbornness. How you deal with failure determines whether or not you ever get to deal with success. Research supervised by a professor of Tulane University revealed that the average entrepreneur goes through 3.8 failures before achieving significant success. Actually, the entire entrepreneurial experience is one of frequent failure interrupted by occasional success. The entire experience of selling is one of frequent refusal, rejection, interrupted by occasional acceptance. In direct marketing, we call it testing, not failure. But a whole lot more tests fail than succeed. Go ahead, screw up, fall down, embarrass yourself. A lot. Fast. There is value in making mistakes. General Schwarzkopf discussed one situation he encountered where, if a bundle of decisions were made and actions taken, and 49% turned out wrong, everybody'd still be way ahead of where they were with no decisions being made and no actions taken. I say, screw up. Fall down. The opposite requires living in constant fear of error, and that's a sad, pitiful existence. You have to look at every significant accomplishment as the end result of a certain number of successes, but also a certain number of failures. Billy Crystal is, as I write this, one of Hollywood's hottest comic commodities. City Slickers was a huge hit, birthing a sequel. But let's not forget his movie, Mr. Saturday Night, which he deeply believed in, which was dead on arrival at the theaters, and which was a huge disappointment to him personally. Everybody at every level who is attempting much of any screws up and falls down. I watched the actor Ted Danson last night on the David Letterman show. Danson took his lumps from Letterman about his much-publicized relationship with Whoopi Goldberg, most memorable for Danson's appearance at her Friars Club roast in blackface, where he delivered a monologue of remarkably raunchy and racist humor that offended those in attendance and became major news for days. Letterman extracted a few pints of blood and laughs at Danson's expense. Coming on the show and letting that subject be discussed was certainly a big risk, and I guessed that Ted was fully aware of the risk of coming away looking like a buffoon or worse. But he took the risk, dealt with the matter, and I think came across as a decent, affable guy who used really bad judgment in one instance, has a sense of humor and humility about his own situation, and can take his hits like a man. I think his stock went up as a result of that interview. If you aren't willing to take risk actions that may cause you personal, financial, or other embarrassment, you aren't going to be taking much action at all. So go ahead, screw up, fall down, embarrass yourself, and do a lot of it as quickly as you can. Learn as much as you possibly can as you go. But whatever you do, don't let yourself be imprisoned by the fear of making mistakes. Death of an actor. One of the saddest stories to come out of Hollywood last year was the rather sordid tale of the death of a young actor named Barry Brown. He played leading roles in Bad Company and Daisy Miller, and he was an actor of unusual promise. But he had the misfortune to do his best work in movies that were, in one way or another, unsuccessful. As he found it increasingly difficult to get parts, he became depressed, began drinking heavily and behaving erratically. He was found in his home, shot through the head with a gun and bottle inside him, and friends theorized he had been playing Russian roulette and had not intended suicide. Barry Brown, dead at 27, had talent, looks, and intelligence. All he lacked was the one quality that, if absent, can make the rest useless. He lacked the ability to hang in, the emotional strength necessary to reject rejection and keep coming back for more. It is the same in many professions, of course. From salesman to saxophonist, the individual who risks something of himself in performance has to be somewhat injured to rebuff. So wrote Bruce Cook, contributing editor to American Film Magazine, in an article for the Wall Street Journal a few years ago. This story is all the more tragic when you consider that it must be representative of tens of thousands of similar stories, some reported, some not, of people who gave up. It is such stories that prove that talent, genius, and education are no assurances of success. In fact, the story of American business is full of stories of people lacking in those qualities, but strong and persistent have achieved the incredible. One has to wonder how much greater America would be as a nation in all respects if the best and the brightest were also the most persistent. Probably the best thing about being in business for yourself is that there isn't anybody to give a letter of resignation to when the going gets tough. Industrialist C.F. Kettering said, "No one ever would have crossed the ocean if he could have gotten off the ship in the storm." I can think of a number of times when I've wanted to quit and didn't, mostly because I couldn't. In my experience, far more business success comes purely from persistence than from invention or investment. There's a lot to be said for simply not giving up. So, how do you convert failure to success? First, just by hanging in. Quite often, failure transforms itself to success purely as a result of persistence. Ernest Hemingway reportedly rewrote The Old Man and the Sea 200 times and tried 44 different endings for A Farewell to Arms. Keep trying a slightly different approach, but keep trying. The insightful writer Ben Stein says, "Failure is like a patient teacher who tells us, 'No, that won't work. Try it a little differently, or maybe a lot differently.' If you look at failure as a coach, as a manager encouraging you to try different approaches, you get a much better idea of what failure is." Second, by diligently looking for the concealed opportunity. To quote proverbs and adages, "Nothing is either good or bad as it first appears to be, and whenever one door closes, another opens." Personally, every great disaster, disappointment, and tragedy in my life has directly led to a greater opportunity or benefit. Every single time. But you can only find what you look for. See what you expect to see. Are there exceptions? I suppose so. There are some failures in which I've been unable to uncover any immediate benefit or opportunity, and those set aside as unfinished business rather than permanent failure have in time yielded enormous value, but these exceptions are few and far between. Third, by taking prompt, decisive, constructive action. Stopping is the absolute worst thing that you can do. I wonder how many shots Michael Jordan missed in his pro basketball career. Even how many crucial shots he missed. Well, one thing's certain. When he did miss one, he didn't rush over to the bench, get the coach, take him out of the game, sit down on the bench, put a towel over his head, and refuse to take another shot for the rest of the game. What did he do when he missed? As soon as possible, he took another shot. Cotton Fitzsimmons, a wise veteran coach, now in management with the Phoenix Suns, says, "Sometimes you have to let a player just shoot his way out of a slump." No, stopping is not the answer. Instead, as with most problems, action is the only true antidote. Epilogue. By now, you should have locked in on the ultimate success secret presented to you a number of times throughout this book. The people who are living this secret are the most respected and admired, influential and powerful, successful and happy individuals on the planet. I would like to add a very brief discussion about just one application of this secret, and to quickly note that, like all advice, it is easier said than done. That, like the fat doctor, I could stand to take my own medicine more frequently, but that does not diminish the importance of the ideas. On the long, often dangerously boring drive from Phoenix to Las Vegas, there are signs posted frequently at sites of deadly accidents, warning drivers not to drive if they've been drinking, not to drive if fatigued. The signs say, "There is a last time for everything." Tell your wife or your husband you love him or her more often, and especially tell him or her today, because they might be gone tomorrow. There is a last time for everything. Stop and have a friendly conversation with your mom, dad, friend, the guy at the newsstand on the corner. Take just a few minutes for this more often than you do, and especially today. They might be gone tomorrow. There is a last time for everything. I called to talk to a friend the other day, another entrepreneur as busy as obsessed as I. She wasn't in. When she called back, she said, almost apologetically and dryly, I was out having a life. She had gone out to lunch with someone 100% unrelated to her business. Whatever it is that you really, really enjoy doing, really, really, really enjoy it the next time you do it. There is a last time for everything. When you go to your job or place of business today, be thankful you've got one, and give it the very best you've got. Tomorrow, thousands will lose their jobs, and then, maybe, wish they'd done things there differently. Tomorrow, 1,000 entrepreneurs will close business doors, and then, maybe, wonder what might have happened if they'd advertised more creatively, sold more aggressively. There is a last time for everything. Whatever you're going to do today, give it your best, and take from it the best you can. There is a last time for everything.